Hey guys, what is going on? Welcome back to another episode of the Shed Organics show. And today I had the pleasure of talking to Chantel or Tilly from Tilly's Garden. Now, I met Tilly at a local garden share event. You can actually see the full workshop that we hosted on that day. So I met Tilly there and was immediately inspired by all the things that she's doing in the garden, and a lot of her beliefs and her goals and intentions align with the things that we're trying to do here at the Shed Organics. And it's all about community in the garden share group and sharing cuttings, sharing knowledge. And after speaking to Tilly, I just thought, look, I think it would be really beneficial to share some more of these conversations to a wider audience and to get her perspective on starting to get into gardening and organic gardening on a small scale in suburbia, or working with your neighbors and your community to come together and learn and share produce. Learn to grow produce as well, and utilize each other's land too. So uh, there's some amazing information about Tilly's zero cost or very, very low, ultra low cost gardening, and also how much money she's able to save at the grocery store. So certainly one to listen to, and get inspired by. So without further ado, here is Tilly, from Tilly's Garden.
Back in my grandma's garden, she had cherry tomatoes, and I'd like, you'd go down and you'd eat them, and then grandma's like, why don't we have tomatoes for dinner? And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. Ooh,
I
not
think
me.
that was like her ploy to get me to eat like healthy food. Um,
Nice.
and like my great grandmother back in the war years, had her own garden. And so apart from my mum, who's not a green thumb at all, I've, got a longer line of gardeners. Like my mum's very, I guess like stereotypical suburban garden where you've got lawn and hedges, and the hedges are like neatly trimmed boxes,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah,
all
that's
looks like a
awesome.
display home catalog. And I, I think I was about 14 or 15, and my stepdad got me a raised garden bed and a worm farm for Christmas because I'd been asking for like 3 years.
Epic present.
And because I'd done a lot of reading, particularly with high school, like doing home economics, and I was doing science and stuff like that at high school. And knowing that when you pick food fresh, you have more enzymes, more vitamins, more sugars available. So by having food as fresh as you can, it's better for you. And we know, and we started learning like back like early 2000s, like of how long food sat in our
Yeah.
grocery stores, and
So
like how
how,
long.
sorry, how old were you when you were learning this? Like,
Oh, like 13, like geography. My geography teacher, she was great. She was like a real like down to earth hippie.
that's great.
Um, so we did a lot of geography trips out to like Dolby and out to the farmlands to learn um like what is shaping towns and what is shaping civilizations. And so that really got me interested in it. And the more I deep dived into it, the more I was like, I need to grow my own food. Like, and then around like late teens, like tomatoes didn't taste like how they used to taste in grandma's garden.
Totally. Yes.
And then carrots didn't taste like carrots, and peas lost flavor. And I was like, why? And then I started growing them in my little, I think it was like 1.2 by 2.4 meter raised garden bed.
Yes.
And even my mom was quite surprised at how good the food tasted again.
Yeah.
And
There's definitely something to be said about
yeah.
that. And I've actually been diving in a little bit to some research myself on
Mm.
bricks levels from
Okay.
plants. I don't know if you've come across it much at all, but I'm just diving into it kind of sort of with fresh ears. But it's
Yeah,
talking about that and talking about how um, if the soil provides enough nutrients for the plant, then it's
yeah.
going to be a higher Brix level. And what that means is that's less
That's
likely
that
to be
sugar
it's
level, isn't it? That they
it's
see under that
yeah, yeah,
the
I'm
little
not gonna
tool
butcher it. I'm
pen
not
thing
gonna
that they have in that.
pretend. Yeah, I don't know what they call the little device, but they're getting these and they're actually
Yeah.
developing the tools to be able to test your vegetables yourself so you can see the
Mm,
nutritional content of what you're eating. So,
yeah.
yeah, I think to learn that at such a young age is pretty admirable because not
Mm,
many people these days are being taught that or shown that or helping
yeah.
helping others, learn the system of food and where it comes from. So to learn that is
Oh, like
pretty awesome.
when I so after I graduated high school, I went into childcare for a little bit. And it was sort of like one of the funny things that we would do is we'd ask the little like kindergarteners where like food was from. And the most common one was to go, "Oh, where's the milk from?" And most of them would say the fridge.
Wow.
One said his mum, and I was like, "Well, you're not wrong." Um, but none of them would say a cow.
Yeah, that's really
Like,
interesting. That's telling, isn't it, really?
yeah. And like, I was like 19, no, I was 17 at the time, 17, 18 at the time. And these kids were like 3 to 5. So, like, they would have to, like, I'm mid 30s now. So they would have to be like in their 20s.
Yeah.
They're
Well,
adults.
hopefully
They
they
probably
know
have driver's
now.
license.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like, why do our kids not know where food's from? And how do they
Yes.
not understand? Like, it's so important. Like, when we're talking like food nutrition and we're talking of like how that's fueling our bodies. And we've got such a health conscious industry that is, all the multivitamins and the supplements and the pre-workout shakes,
Yes.
all that's there to supplement the fact that we don't have the nutrition in the food anymore.
It really is.
Um,
And as you say,
yeah.
like how it's lost its taste and lost its flavor. These
Mm.
these bricks levels are dropping, which means there's less insects. Sorry, the bricks levels,
Enzyme.
yeah, so
Yeah.
everything's dropping. So there's more pest pressure and there's less actual nutrient density at the end of the day. So then people are
And the
missing out.
and the growing it in monocultures, like it just doesn't like I do historical reenactment as well as a hobby.
Awesome. Yeah,
So
awesome.
my interest in the historical reenactment is obviously in the gardening and the food and how that
Yes.
all comes together. And looking back, like the monocultures were not a thing.
Yeah.
Even in the 1700s, 1800s, monocultures were not a thing. Like you wouldn't have just a whole field of wheat, even in the 1700s. Like it just wasn't done.
Yeah.
I think like 1870 was like the like the earliest I could find mentioned of like monoculture farming.
Yeah.
And
I think
that
it's
was
kind
like apple orchards. Like,
Yeah, and they're essentially watching nature and they're trying to figure out how
hmm,
to work with it. And now that we've got these systems whereby it's all about capital gain and they're trying to kind of essentially pinch every corner they can, then they're
yeah,
not
or they have
working.
a harvester that can only harvest one type of thing. So to make that machine work because you don't have the people employed,
Yes, yeah,
and that's a
exactly.
whole nother issue.
Yeah, all the logistics. Yeah. Well, that's
Oh,
so true.
yeah.
And but that's on a large scale and that's
Hmm.
sort of the problem of our systems that we need to try and change as a whole. But
Hmm.
what we can start with obviously is doing something
Home
similar
gardening.
to what you have started to do. So I'm
Yeah.
loving seeing the chicken roaming behind you.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously that's a big part of having like almost like a closed loop within your property.
Yeah,
So
and we
yeah,
we
tell
try and
me a
keep
bit
it as
about
closed as
yeah,
possible.
tell me a bit about
Yeah,
your
so
property and what you got going on there.
we got we bought we got a 600-meter block and it has a two-story house on it. So that was like one of my stipulations when looking for a house to buy, was that we had the maximum amount of usable land for what we could afford. So that meant a two-story house, even though I've got bad knees. So I just put up with the stairs.
Yeah.
So it was like, because our footprint of our house is smaller, we have more
Perfect.
space.
Yeah.
So our total growing space, when I mapped it out, is around 250 to 280 square meters
Wow.
of usable garden. So that's not taking into account like the concrete, like back,
Yeah. Where you
patio
could have
thing, and it's not
pots and
taking in the
things and yeah.
driveway.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's factoring in the chicken coop because I still grow things within the chicken coop.
That's awesome.
So we tried um like coming into it, particularly because we started developing the ground here in 2019. And then of course 2020 happened. And so my plans of planting fruit trees and setting up gardens for like the autumn of 2020 all just like it just fell
Changed.
apart because
Yeah.
like nothing was available. So
Yes.
it sort of had to get delayed a bit. But we started this from a very like permaculture, start from the ground up, get the get the soil healthy first, then plant
Mm.
into it.
Yeah.
And
What did you do
um
to get the soil healthy? What sort of stuff did you try and
we did a lot of composting. So
cool.
we composted everything we could that's legal to compost, uh, and that would actually like compost down. Um, the fruit stickers that they tell you are compostable,
They're not
it
compostable.
it's it's been 5 years and it's my tester one is still pristine.
Yeah.
Um,
They're pretty hard to
not
break down,
compostable.
so not
Yeah.
compostable.
So I'm like, nope. Um, I had the chooks prior to moving, so we already had like a kickstart in terms of like nitrogen and phosphorus based
Yeah.
fertilizer. So we had that going. So we were putting that in all our food scraps that we were, buying from the shop because we didn't have anything here yet. That was going in the compost. We, you know, have a mate who has cows and goats. So that was going in the
Perfect.
compost.
I love it.
Um, and when we bought the property, it had bananas, a mango, and an avocado tree.
Cool.
So
Plenty
we
that
could chop
comes
and
off
drop.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So chopping and dropping the bananas was like one of our main sources of like green stuff for the compost.
Yeah.
And we got the first 4 garden beds in the March, and we filled them with bought in mushroom compost.
Yeah.
Had moderate success with that. And I was topping back then with sugarcane that we
Yeah.
had purchased. But in the last since 2022, because obviously like we started with one compost bay. We now have 4 cubic meter compost bays.
Whoa.
So we've
Awesome.
got bays 1 to 4. And then I think we've got a further 7 of like, the Dalek looking compost bins.
Yes,
Like
I do.
I've painted them up to look like Daleks. So I
That's brilliant.
was like,
That's
why
really
not?
good.
Um,
Yeah,
and
they
then
they're
we
still
also,
fine.
yeah, so we've got this whole composting system going that in the last 2 years we haven't had to buy in anything.
Yeah, that's
And
so
so
crucial, isn't it?
yeah, so we've tried to close that loop as much as possible and keep what's grown here to go back in.
Mm.
So
And
like we have
there's so much
mm,
waste, isn't there, really, that comes out of the
oh
garden. And like,
yeah.
I think starting with being able to generate your own compost, therefore you know what goes into it. Therefore, you
Mm-hmm.
know what's going on to your gardens and into your food. So
Yeah.
having free soil that's top quality that you know exactly what's gone into it, bar a few fruit stickers, that like,
Yeah.
we're
And
coming
tea
out.
bags.
Yeah. There's a few things, isn't there? Yeah, but it's
Mm.
essentially we're providing free great nutrients for the garden. So I like your resourcefulness as well, that you go and reach out to a friend or someone that that has certain things. Like
Hmm.
I know lots of people will work with coffee shops to steal their
Yeah.
their coffee grounds, these types
Yeah,
of things.
I steal coffee grounds. Yep.
Yeah. Well, it's reusing them.
We do that.
There's a
And
lot of coffee drank.
we have a kebab shop near here that we take their daily like produce waste,
Awesome.
um,
Yeah. That's
which
another
is
great
like
one.
onions, lettuce, tomatoes, just goes in the compost. And we're working with our neighbors, like quite a few neighbors, because I've started up like a neighborhood garden Facebook, like
Beautiful.
just for like who can walk to me.
Yeah.
And so they're dropping their compost scraps around,
That's
and
so
then
good.
I'm giving them some compost and some saved seeds from the garden so that they can, start to build up. And then like we chat in the mornings when I'm out watering about how their garden's going, and
That's
how
so
they're,
cool.
if they're having any pest problems and things like that, and sharing knowledge,
I think
which
that
is
is
really good.
I think that's amazing. I'd like to just quickly stay on that for a second because I
Hmm.
think there's some real gold in that whole process. And I want to shine a light on it as well for you because that type of thing in terms of bringing in your community and your neighborhood, not only are you, like you say, sharing knowledge and resources, you are inspiring others to be able to do it. And then you're also, correct me if I'm wrong, but I get a huge sense of joy and fulfillment and connection out of having a community of
Yeah.
people that you can do this with. And regardless of what the community is based around, whether it's gardening or whatever, it's certainly a really special thing to have a community in that
Mm.
local area and that support. So do you find that?
And I feel like as millennials as well, like that, generation that gets talked down to all the time, like we having technology come into our lives as we were developing, and then the generations after us are just, it's always been there for them. Like the having a physical community, like in-person community is so different, like to an online community. Like, and any community is important, but having like a neighbor community where, like we've got our best friends who live next door. We didn't know that when we bought the property, but like within a week,
Yeah.
like, we're sharing garden stuff, we're playing D&D together, like we're
Amazing.
besties
Amazing.
now. Um, and just having that face-to-face communication, like it fulfills so much of a human need. And
Yes.
then to have passers-by come, like, because I've got veggies in the front garden as well. And a lot of people, their first response is like, but won't people steal them? And I'm like, yeah, cool. They can, like, don't take all of it, but if you
Yeah.
need some, like, did you want to see my seed packets
Yeah.
in my compost exchange?
Yeah.
Like,
Come and like I'll help
let's,
you.
yeah, like show me where your garden is. I'll come plant in your garden. Which is what we're doing for next door, is we're using their garden to grow even more food. So I'm expanding my garden into their space, because in terms of like, they both work full time, and while they'd love to garden, the like I've got 20 years plus knowledge where they haven't quite started yet. And they, you know, both working full time, long jobs, shift work, whether they've got the energy to get out there. And
Yeah.
so I do, because I do part-time work. So we're going to share the harvest from the work that's gone in. And,
That's so good.
um, so we're
That
building that community.
again, that's sharing resources, isn't it? And like that's
Hmm.
coming together to be like, look, we're going to utilize the land that we have together to provide for
Yeah.
everyone here, and it's coming together. They might even have something that they have in abundance or a skill or something that you don't
A
have that
3D
they can.
printer and a laser cutter.
There you go. Exactly. Exactly. So then they can
Yeah.
share their kind of stuff with
Mm.
you as well, and it's a trade. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to highlight that because that was a really cool thing that you said. I think it needs
Yeah.
more attention. Um, go into a little bit for me about this no cost situation.
Yeah. So with the neighbor's garden, because my garden is already established, So showcasing my garden to someone who's just starting out is sort of like going, here's the Mona Lisa.
Yeah.
You're going to be painting a tree. Uh, like it doesn't quite connect, you know? Whereas if you say, okay, here's this empty patch of land that has just had grass on it, like nothing's been done to it. I think a lot of people can relate to that, like when
Yeah.
they've just bought a house or they're just starting gardening. So being able to say, hey, for $0 or as close to $0 as possible, like so far we spent $29 on the council's compost bin that is like 80 rebate. So it was like
Yeah.
$29 for a
Because you
compost
can
bin.
get the
With,
rebate, can't you? Obviously, with all the money back that they give you.
yeah, so
That is a
Redlands
great one.
introduced that. Mm.
Yeah.
And so that's like all we've spent so far. And then you guys, we got the green manure sample, which has
Perfect.
done superbly. Like
Awesome.
the soil that really sandy and just like 80% sand, free
Yeah.
draining, which you want free draining soil, just maybe not like that quick.
Yeah, not super free
It
drain.
now it has like about half a centimeter of loam on top,
Ooh.
like from all that chop and drop of the green manure already, and that's only been I think 9 weeks,
That's perfect. And like what's
9 or
cool
10
about
weeks.
it, if you do kind of just chop it close to the soil surface,
Yeah,
a lot of it will keep just reproducing and you can kind of just keep using it for green
yep,
manure mass. So I'm so
yeah,
pleased that's worked for you. That's wicked. It does
yeah,
work wonders.
and we're just about to we're just about to smother it with a black tarp, so and let it
Nice.
cook,
Yeah, get and let all the
and
worms
just
come up
to
and
just to
eat
kill
it.
it off, just to yeah,
Cool.
if there's any worms.
I'm sure there are in your
Hopefully
place.
there's some. Yeah, so we're hoping with that garden to showcase for people just starting out, but also there's definitely like since I started a family, like I've definitely become probably more community conscious now than I was prior to having my child.
Yes.
And I've like noticed, particularly on like the Facebook like groups and stuff and the mums groups, is particularly post 2020, everyone's like, oh, how can we make groceries cheaper? How can we like we can't afford to feed our kids this week. Like we're
Yeah.
struggling. And I'm like, okay, I know in my that last month, if I was to have bought the same things that I ate from my garden from Woolies or Coles, so I added it up with all our like what we harvested, it was $1,600.
Wow.
The month before that was 1,400, and then in June it was 1,250, and then in May, May was like 1,800.
Whoa. And that's all being produced from your garden.
Yeah, that's just eating. That's not what's going to the chickens or what's
Yeah.
going in the compost as chop and drop.
That's amazing. And like you're absolutely right
Just
because lately
eating. So
like yeah, lately all of these groceries are just continuing to go up and up and up and up. And in the shops we literally
yeah.
have food that doesn't taste good. It's
And I
not
mean,
nutritionally dense
what choice do we have? We need to eat. Like
and
we've got to have
as you say,
food.
you want to feed your kids and you want to feed your kids
Hmm.
good stuff and we want to educate them on the importance as you were when you were a kid of good
And of
food
healthy
and
food
where
too.
it comes from. So yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So then you've
Yeah.
started this on like TikTok and YouTube.
Yeah.
Obviously, I've been watching what you do. It's very, very cool. So you're just showing ways of being able to do these
Be
kind of
sustainable.
yeah, and these community
And
based activities or like these
mhm.
small scale or like the closed loop systems that
Yeah,
help you save money and really
exactly.
can
And I feel like
happen.
showcasing the like to get people into it by showcasing the fact that, hey, this has real dollar value. The fact that I only spent 12 hours in my garden last month and I saved myself $1,400.
Yeah,
Like that's
wild.
over $100 an hour
Yeah.
that, is like,
On a
hey,
600 square block, like not well, 200
yeah,
and whatever growing space. It's
yeah,
really not a huge amount of space like to produce that level of
mm,
groceries.
yeah. Like you wouldn't think so, but when you move away from that ideology of like, oh, I'll have like a row of 12 lettuces that I plant on July 1st and 14 carrots. And you start going, I'm going to put one lettuce here. And then next to that lettuce, I'll surround it by radishes that'll be ready to pick in 6 weeks. And then once those radishes are ready, the lettuce will be bigger. And I harvest the leaves from the edges rather than the whole plant. I can extend the
Yes.
value of crop. And then, next to that lettuce as it comes through, I'm going to put like a cherry tomato that'll get shaded in the beginning while it's like weaker and the lettuce will grow through. Then I'll chop and drop it to feed the tomato. Then the tomato will help like provide climbing work for peas. And I can do all that in a square foot.
Yeah, exactly. That's
So
essentially you're providing as well, like what you're going to eat, not
mm,
necessarily like a huge surplus of one thing where you have to go and then store it for a year or whatever. I
yeah.
mean, that's still
So you
okay,
totally
but
haven't seen my freezer full of tomatoes. Um
well, that does happen with tomatoes. But
yeah.
that's good. It to be able to
Mm,
preserve and to store it, or your produce is another whole skill in
yeah,
itself. But
definitely huge
the
skills.
ability to have all of this like interplanted within each other and like helping each other out grow at the right stages and things like this and
Yeah.
harvesting the right ways and dragging it out. It's really clever techniques and
Mm.
it's
And they're
just
the things
working with
like
it.
I definitely want to highlight those like on my channel, like particularly with this zero cost garden. And I'm just about to start a like patio veggie garden as well, like
Awesome.
a balcony veggie garden, just because I want to see how much I can harvest from 3 pots.
Yes,
As like a little
nice.
challenge. But like to start off something and then to have almost like a step-by-step tutorial that someone else in our area could follow, like someone without any knowledge could just come in and go, okay, in August, I will do, steps 1 to 5. And then in
Yes.
September, I'll do steps 5 to 10 and know that I'll be eating food by the end of September.
Yeah, it's
Like,
making it more accessible for more people. Hey.
yeah. And certainly at like, because YouTube's free, like, and I can put that knowledge out there for free for everybody, and then anyone can access it as
Yeah.
long as they have internet. Like, they can access it. So it's like it's not gatekeeping it behind a paywall or anything like that.
Yeah.
Which back when I started gardening, as a teen, like I mean, you had internet, but you'd have to go to the library and find a book, or you'd have to purchase a book, and then or you'd have to like pay to go to a gardening class.
Yeah, or meet some
Whereas,
guru or something.
yeah, so
Exactly.
it's very different now that we have the online community that we can access. And so we can access from anywhere in the world. But I feel like trying to keep it as local as possible because every microclimate's different.
Yeah, that's another
So
big part. And
that's another
that's a
part.
big part of the ethos in terms of like with the products, that I'm putting
Mm,
together. It's like these are locally sourced ingredients, so they're not going to work in another country. You're not going to be able to source these, and it's not going to be
and the
as
soil's different
effective.
in other countries
Yeah,
too. So you
yeah,
need different, like
exactly.
different products. Like
And
having that high
local.
clover mix
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
is yeah, like the having like your high percentage of clover is so good for Australian soil. Like
Yeah, it works
I
well
think
here, but it might not in
yeah.
other places, especially if it's like insanely hot,
Mm,
and barren and dry. So like with basically I'm putting out and saying, hey, here's the simple information as you are of how to transition from nothing, knowing nothing to getting some really
yeah,
good basic results. And then it's like if you want to take it a step further and really dive down the rabbit hole, then like,
yeah.
I've got all these other things that we can add to it if you really want to. But first
Mhm.
and foremost, it's just like, hey, here's the info. Let's try and get as many people transitioning over and understanding the ingredients or the crops and the climates and the times of year and making it simple so that more and more people are
Yep.
using their land and we don't have to rely on these supermarket systems and
And like so many people that like contact me online, particularly with the zero cost garden, because a lot of people when they're getting into gardening, they want to grow food like now. Um, They want to be like, oh,
Yes.
I put the tomato in the ground. Can I make bolognese this weekend? It's like, no. But
Yeah. It's
and then they
instant
sort of like, well, what's
gratification.
yeah, and then they're just like, well, what's green manure? And I'm like, green manure is your friend.
Yeah.
They don't, there's not a lot of info out there. And then what tends to be out there tends to be like European based. So
Yes.
having companies like yourself where it's like, hey, this is what we put in our stuff. This is why we have it for this area. Um,
Yeah.
and particularly for Australian soil, like Australian soil isn't like any other soil anywhere else. Like our soil is so depleted and deficient because we have some of the oldest soil on the planet. Like it's been here when most of the other continents were still underwater.
Yeah.
Like,
Very true.
so
So
it's been, you know, depleted for so long. So being able to have a product that we can safely use and say, hey, let's rebuild this to grow our European vegetables that are used to a higher quality soil than what we have here without having to buy in truckloads of, landscaped soils
yeah,
and and
exactly.
all of that. Like
Yeah,
that's
using these natural
so good.
ingredients to really try and turn the soil into something that's workable for more
Yeah.
things like yeah, as you say, more produce that's that we can have access to now. Um, and it's not necessarily that it wasn't possible before, it's just that we're helping it along the way by putting the right things in the right place and sort of
Yeah.
nudging it
And
in the right
like
direction.
if you have the right soil set up from the get-go and you've got like, all your nutrients in the right spot, your soil's working for you, you don't have to baby that plant so much. And then
Totally.
that plant is going to give you a bigger harvest, a better harvest. So it's like literally working from the ground up. Like there's a reason we have that saying.
Yeah.
There's like,
Yeah.
you've got to work from the ground up. Like you can't build a roof before you've built the foundation. So if you're trying to put like a plant in the ground and you just have sand and you don't know why the plant's not doing well, it's like, well, okay, go back to basics. Like soil is the most basic thing. Like you got to build that up first.
Yeah,
And that's
exactly
why
right. Treating the
composting is
soil.
so important. Yeah.
Yeah, it's and a good quality compost. So I know that like you're obviously very good at composting and doing like we've been doing that process for a while and kind of got it down
Yeah.
to a fine art where you can kind of like really you've got 4 bays and things like this. But I
Yeah.
was I was talking in another conversation about how you virtually can start with anything like compost on your
Mm.
kitchen counter and that's some of the
Oh, we
motivation
got those
behind you doing the small
what's
scale.
those Bakashi
Yes.
Bakashi compost? Is it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have
Like that's like
Bokashi
the one
buckets
compost
outside.
method. You got?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I
I
haven't
should
used
use them.
Bakashi yet, but
It's really good.
yeah.
I think like essentially it's fermentation. So we're putting a lot of the food scraps into a bucket and compressing it down to try and limit the amount of air so it's more anaerobic. And
Yeah.
then putting in these bokashi grains
You're
and
right.
then they
Yeah.
basically ferment it down. And the juice, the fermented juice, is insanely good for
Yeah.
putting through then back onto your plants. And then once the bucket's full, I just dig a hole and basically bury
Put
it
it
and
in.
yeah, or feed it, into the compost or feed to the worms or
Yeah.
something like this. But it's that's another one that you can do. Slightly more smelly and whatever, but you can still do it.
Yeah. Like a lot of people as well, like from what like our education system has given us, it's like, okay, you get worms and worms eat the food. The worms don't actually eat the food. The worms have to wait for that food to ferment and break down to then eat the bacteria that's eating the food. So compost worms eat bacteria, not food directly. And
Yes.
I feel like that's why I think Bokashi, like it should be a lot more popular. And I definitely need to get one. Um, but certainly having that like faster process too. So I
Yeah.
found from when I started composting to when I had usable compost for my garden was 9 months.
Okay. From like first time putting it all together in a pile and
Yep.
then are you turning it
Yep.
regularly?
That was without turning it. That was just
Okay.
like
Oh, yeah.
lasagnaing
Yeah.
in a cubic square meter, just like lasagnaing stuff.
Cool.
And within 9 months, I'd say the bottom third was amazing. The middle third was like mostly broken down, but still had like your higher carbon stuff hadn't quite broken down, like
Yeah.
sticks.
Sticks.
And
Yeah.
then the top third, I just put into another compost bin to start that one off.
Yeah, cool. And
Like,
then you can kind
that
of mix
became
the other
the
stuff
bottom.
through that's like the bigger bits of carbon because that's often good for drainage and stuff too. Or sift
Yeah,
it out. Like I've seen of
exactly. Yeah,
just,
we
yeah,
sifted a lot.
yeah, because then you can kind of just
Yeah.
really make sure it's like perfect.
Yeah. And then like with our worm farms, like I think from when we got the worm farm, put like that first layer in and started feeding it to when we harvested from it, the first time round was over 12 months.
Wow.
But now that we sort of know how the bacteria works to feed the worms, like I can cycle that through within like 4 to 6 months.
Wow. That's really good.
Yeah.
That's really,
So
really good. Wow.
definitely
What,
having
yeah.
like the knowledge helps sometimes.
It does. And it's like, and we're always learning, like
Mm.
this is another motivation, selfish motivation actually for doing the podcast is because I get to pick the brains of people who I look up to.
Yeah.
So I can kind of just go or like, hey, you're really interesting. You've got some amazing knowledge. Hey, let's pick the brain, but also then repurpose it to share to everybody else. So
And that's why we
this is
need
great.
like bringing it back to community. Like that's why we need the community because like at no point in human evolution or like human history, like we have not been these like little nuclear units of just like, man, woman, child. Like
Yeah.
that's not how humans work. Like we go, okay, like there's the blacksmith, there's the guy who fetches water and knows how to build buckets. This is the guy who knows how to do shoes. Like this is the chick who makes bread. Like there's these
Yes.
skills and we swap and share them. And that's what I love, I think, the most about gardening. I know about plants that I've grown all these years, but then we'll go to like the garden. Oh, you're growing that food. I don't know what that is. Um, or this year I'm trying okra.
Okra. Yeah.
Never grown it before. Got no idea what I'm doing. Um, yeah, but a couple of people at the garden, you want to harvest at this time, not what it says on the internet, like because they're also in our like local council area. So they know for our climate that we've got to move it a month earlier than what it says for like the Greater Brisbane, just
Yeah.
because our
Okay.
humidity is different. So it's like that local knowledge in the
Yeah.
community is so important.
Having someone who's been here in the exact same location and has grown for a while is like, yeah, it's like that local knowledge when you go on
Mm.
a trip somewhere. You want somebody who knows
Yeah.
exactly where to get all the good things. But look,
Yeah.
we're gonna have to wrap this up. Is there anything that I can push for you? Is that obviously I'm gonna try and send people to your channels. We've got YouTube, TikTok.
Yeah. So YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook are probably the
Awesome.
ones I use the most. TikTok, I kind of use more like a personal garden diary. So there's like a lot of stuff on there. YouTube, I'm trying to just keep it to like specific
You like topics,
projects,
yeah, and
so like
projects, yeah.
the zero cost garden project, and have that in a playlist so that all the information's like cataloged and easy to get to. You don't have to sift through a lot.
Yeah,
Um,
perfect.
and then yeah, Facebook's more if I have stuff that I want to have like written down
Yeah, cool. All
to
right.
share
Well,
rather than just like
I'll make sure I link all of these for everyone to find you so they can go and check out your stuff. But
yeah.
yeah, thank
And
you so
obviously
much for
like the
coming
more
on.
followers means the more people I can reach and help. So
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah.
this is what we're hoping for. So yes, thank you so much again. And
No
yeah,
worries.
we'll definitely chat again soon because I know we could go on for a long time chatting about some more of
Yeah.
this stuff. So I'd love to have you back on.
Oh, there's more garden meetups happening soon. So
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Keen for it. What a wonderful conversation. And as I'm sure you would agree, we could also chat for a long time more about so many more of these techniques to be able to grow organic food at home for ourselves, our families, and our communities. Now, I have online on the website right now this copy of the Growing Organic Guide. It's the ultimate, sorry, ultra. It's the ultimate beginner's guide to getting into organic gardening. So it's everything that you need to know to make that start. So if that sounds like something that you would love to get your hands on, visit the website now and you'll find it right there for free download, and get stuck into the garden and be inspired. Please feel free to reach out if you've got any questions on today's episode. Make sure to follow Tilly on all of her channels for more of her amazing work. Thank you very much for watching. Please share, like, subscribe, follow all of the beautiful, amazing stuff that help us share this to a wider audience. And we'll see you again on the next episode.